V-Day. Britain begins their vaccine rollout, the US Supreme Court looks at the disputed election, and China blames Australia for starting COVID-19. That's right. This is The Arc with Riccardo Bosi. Riccardo, you must feel like a star. I have been so overwhelmed by the outreach we've received on this trip. Last night you were talking with 200 people in a shop, in a business owner's shop of an A1 supporter, and there were 3,000 people watching online. How do you deal with that weight of people, the amount of people that are sort of, they're really looking to A1 for hope?
Oh, they are, and it's not so much that I'm the star, and please, people have got to understand that. It's got nothing to do with me. It's everything to do with the A1 message. It's just what most people want. When they hear it, they love it. And it's really as simple as that. And the A1 family, how do you deal with 300 or 200 people in a room for 3 hours? Brilliant, because they're all on side. You've never seen or you have seen them now, a more decent bunch of people who want nothing but the best for themselves and their kids and the future. So it's just extraordinary, and it's and again, there's a team around A1. There's a handful of hard-working volunteers bringing it all together, and it's a massive job, huge job, to coalesce these individuals, create the systems, the processes. It's like any business startup, as you can imagine. And just on that, if you've sent me an email and I've not replied, there are 957. I'm working my way through, so we're not rude, we're just very busy. So great problem to have. So the Currumbin talk last night, just superb, great people. 3 hours, solid Q&A, presentation, the lot, great. Yeah. And it's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And as the Queensland tour continues, we expect that to continue as well. The words are getting out, the numbers are growing. There will be one slight change though, folks, so check the website for the actual itinerary. It's changing quite dramatically. We were going to go inland. One of the facilitators, unfortunately, let's say, over-promised and under-delivered. And that's okay, because we always have a plan B. This guy's, as my American friends say, he's all hat and no cattle. And so he's off to one side. We're rejigging the itinerary, so go to the website, check it out, and find out where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, and away we go. But we're heading up the coast, certainly in the first instance. Toowoomba tonight, and when this goes to air, I think it's the day after Toowoomba. So Toowoomba on the 9th, and then after that, check the itinerary. But the momentum is growing, and the people are growing, and the word's just getting out. It's fantastic.
Excellent. I often worry that I'm sort of slipping into the situation where I'm praising you too much. But honestly, last night you did a 20 to 30 minute presentation on the vision of A1, and then you spent the next 2 hours and 40 minutes solid. It's all recorded, guys. You can see it online, just taking questions. And there was no moderator to save you. I don't want to understate that. It's so important, and if there was another politician that does that, guys, you let me know, because I will cover their event too. But I haven't seen that, and transparency is the new commodity. I've said that a number of times. So look, credit to you, credit to A1. It was a great event, and I look forward to seeing those grow as the tour goes on. I mentioned in the opening that we're in a very fascinating situation with China. Channel 7 reported that China has pointed the finger at Australia for starting COVID-19. Now, this is my job, guys. I need to remind you about all the crazy things that they've said in the past. China, they firstly said that the US military, this is earlier in the year, one of their diplomats to the USA said that the USA military planted COVID-19 in China. Then last week, we covered this. They said it came from Italy, and your relative Salvini in Italy was not very happy about that. And then they said it came from India, and this week they're saying Australia. Now, if you guys are wondering, are they angry with us? Is this a standalone issue? I would argue no, because this was quickly followed by China broadening their attacks on beef exports, where they've suspended exports to some of their ports in China from some of our Australian beef exports, which is a very big portion of our economy. And then just this morning, China exports have also spread to the lamb industry in Australia, a $780 million industry, which is being disrupted by Beijing. Riccardo, are these the actions of the Chinese Communist Party, an organization that is trying to be honest and transparent and have free trade?
There's nothing honest and transparent about the Chinese Communist Party. There's nothing honest and transparent about our government. We know that. It's a joke. We were set up to have 80% of our trade relying on China, single point of failure. It's part of the plan. As I said last week, how can Scott Morrison stand up to China when he's on his knees all day, every day? No, this is just a distraction. And what's interesting about this is a real attempt to destroy our economy. That's the goal. And the Chinese are just schmucks. Don't think that Xi Jinping is some great global leader. He's a puppet on a string like everybody else. And this has been recorded in many books decades ago. The Chinese Communist Party is just the means by which globalist agendas will be achieved, and there's plenty of evidence of that. So Xi himself is just another schmuck. But the damage to the economy is real.
Yep.
And the fact that they're accusing us of starting COVID, honestly, folks, forget whether it was accidental, intentional, the release, whether it was bioengineered or natural. Again, irrelevant. What we need to keep focusing on, regardless of the distractions from China and regardless of the distractions from our government, is the government's response to the situation. And as I said, there's going to be a royal commission into this, and people will find out the depravity to which our government has descended. This is all distraction. It's all lie. There are real businesses suffering, but there are ways around it. There's a whole world out there to trade with. There's a huge world out there. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm not going to trust Simon Birmingham to do a thing about it. All efforts are being taken. What? You're getting on two knees instead of one, Simon? Please, come on. Get out there, assist the exporters to find new markets as quickly as possible. And turn your back on China, but you can't because you've been bought and paid for.
I'm reminded, last week I mentioned the words of George Orwell and how there were 3 countries in the world of 1984 that George Orwell wrote. And I was reminded of the constant revision of history to suit the party and their objectives of the day. And these 2 quotes came to mind. Every record has been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue and every street building has been renamed, every date has been altered. And the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. And then he goes on to say, the past was alterable. The past has never been altered. Oceania was at war with East Asia. Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. And I look at these situations at each point that China says these things, or the state media outlet says these things, or the diplomat says these things, it's because they're having an issue with one of these countries, whether it's the USA and the world getting around together and agreeing China is responsible for this. They signed a 2015 agreement that the next time a SARS-like virus comes around, they need to let the world know. They didn't do it. Scott Morrison led the charge in getting an inquiry into that. What does China do? They say, the USA came out. It came from the US. And then they blame Italy because Italy had a massive outbreak. It might be plausible. Then they blame India because, if you guys haven't noticed, because it's been an insane year, I've been watching this, there have been clashes. Dozens of men on both sides have died in India on a border dispute where there's some land that's disputed between India and China. Microwave weapons were used on Indian soldiers and they had to retreat, and China seized the land that it was used then. And now we see Australia. Australia's not backing down after the flame war that Scott Morrison had. And we're seeing our exports, beef and lamb, get targeted. George Orwell was ahead of his time. He's a phenomenal intellect. I don't know how he saw this stuff, but very insightful.
Well, the problem is that he wrote it as a warning and the left took it as a guidebook. and that's the problem.
Damn it, George.
But what they're doing is they're gaslighting the entire population. For those of you not familiar with the expression gaslighting, check out the movie. It's where a series of lies get told to you, so you cease to trust your own judgment anymore. So the population ends up being divided into three groups, and you get to choose which group you're in. Group number one is you don't believe them. That's very small. But the majority of the population will fall into the two other groups, and one is they don't believe themselves anymore, and they believe the last headline because they're so weak psychologically. And the other group don't care anymore. They don't believe anything, but they don't care. And they love it. That's the globalist subjective. They love that. They want an uninterested population. Let's smoke another joint. Let's get pissed because it's all useless anyway. Yeah. And they love it because that's how they take over. And the only group they fear is the group that knows what's going on.
That's right. Young people, you know. Don't let video games rule your life. Don't always stay in control. Don't let drugs rule your life. Don't let porn rule your life.
Don't be a slave to anything or anyone.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. You might be able to explain this to me because I don't quite understand the repercussions. I don't fully understand the repercussions of this, but it's been announced that Victoria and New South Wales have lost their AAA credit rating. Victoria and New South Wales have lost their rolled gold AAA credit rating with the S&P Global, issuing downgrades that all cast a cloud over the federal government's prize AAA rating. Now, for the people that have no idea about the financial world, what does that actually mean and what will the repercussions be?
Okay, allegedly, Standard & Poor's, S&P, they assess independently the governments to indicate whether the degree of sovereign risk. Because when you invest in a country, and if the government is weak, or the rule of law isn't enforced, or the fundamentals to the economy are weak, they'll get a low rating. So as a warning to anybody doing business within that country, not necessarily with the government, but within the country. Now that's allegedly what Standard & Poor's and the rest of these, rating agencies do. In reality, like everywhere else on the planet, these people. You can pay for a rating if you want it, but there's an agenda. This is a means by which Australian investment in Australia can be controlled. Because if you get a hit to your AAA credit rating, then people might take a step back and say, "Well, we're not going to invest our hard-earned cash into your country because there's a low risk." But that presupposes that S&P is honest. I don't believe they are for a fraction of a second. There's no globalist organisation that is honest. And this is, we shouldn't have a AAA rating for ages. If you're looking at this dispassionately, Australia and Vic and New South Wales and Queensland included should have lost their AAA rating ages ago, but they've pretended that they still have had it up. Queensland's going to have a state debt of $180 billion by June next year.
Yeah.
$180 billion. You know, good old Joshy, we've heard the news, we're going to be in debt till 2080, and somehow we've maintained our AAA rating, but now it's coming down. This is part of the game. It's a shill game. They want to continue to degrade our economy by telling the world, don't invest here. We don't get the foreign investment, which is useful, not necessary, but useful. And so this is another brick in the wall to destroying our economy. And so we collapse the economy. People are worried about feeding their families, and that prepares the ground for, let's say, a great reset, massive changes to the fundamentals of our society. But when your kids are screaming from hunger, you don't care who's going to save you, and they'll turn up and promise you all sorts of things, like, in the future you will own nothing and you will be happy. And they'll say, do I get to feed my kids? If they say yes, I'm all for it, whatever you want. Because that's what they want to do. So this is another distraction. It's another lie. It's another move by the globalists to undermine us. And those two clowns on the screen, they couldn't organise a AAA rating if they tried. Again, they're just like puppets on a string.
V-Day. The United Kingdom has started vaccinating people basically today. And the first person that they've deemed most vulnerable is a grandmother, 90 years old, who will be receiving the Pfizer vaccine, which many countries are getting on board with, but the UK was first to the punch. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I'm looking at a picture of that buffoon, and I think we've said it before, but we'll say it again for those who might be new to the Ark. one of the prerequisites to becoming the Prime Minister of Great Britain is to be the Mayor of London. Now, the City of London is like this independent state, and it's a way for the globalists to see whether you'll bend over well enough to do the top job. And when Boris became Mayor of London, I knew that he was being checked, and the moment he got the tick, I knew that he was a busted flush. So everybody that thought that Boris Johnson was the saviour of Brexit and the saviour of the UK, sorry, but I knew it was a lie. And he's been passing law after law after law, removing basic rights of Britons. And now this is rolling out. This man is a fully paid-up globalist and has been since forever. Because a fool like that doesn't get the top job unless he's allowed to get the top job. That's point number one. The Pfizer vaccine. I received a copy of a letter which was originally sent to the WA Health Minister, Cook, and the author of the letter didn't receive a reply, and the author, and I won't identify the author at all, the author did not intend to go to the media or make a song and dance, just expressed concerns and requested a reply. No reply was forthcoming, and so they've sent the letter to us. And I'd like to read that letter once we've done with the rest of this bit. So just hold your horses there, folks, and you're going to hear something extremely disturbing.
Absolutely, and I mean just so you guys know, Pfizer is one of the companies developing one of these vaccines. There's multiple companies that have been racing each other to get the vaccine first because it's a gold mine. If governments are mandating it, it's definitely a gold mine. Now, it was found that there's a warning basically. No breastfeeding, avoid pregnancy for 2 months. There's unknown fertility impacts of this Pfizer vaccine. A safety instructor in the UK has warned women. This is worrying, guys. You know, my sister is pregnant, and I definitely I'd want her to hold off on this if she was considering it. I don't think she is, but. Yeah, Riccardo, did you want to elaborate on the situation in Australia now? You told me very interesting.
Let me just lean forward and grab this as half.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is as I said earlier, this is a letter to Roger Cook, the Minister for Health in Western Australia, Australian Labor Party, the friend of the workers, yeah, really. And the letter reads like this. Firstly, I would like to be clear that I am not anti-vaccination. I believe in vaccination. However, I also believe it is the right of the general public to have a choice of vaccines where possible, to know what is in the vaccines and to be confident about the testing and the safety of the vaccine being considered. Following the outbreak of COVID-19 and other debates that followed regarding vaccination and potential of a mandatory COVID vaccination, I started researching vaccines. I became aware of the most concerning aspect of a vaccine, to my understanding being the adjuvant component. However, also became aware of the necessity of the adjuvant. Now, what's the adjuvant? Adjuvant's a Latin term meaning to help. It's a pharmacological and immunological agent that improves the immune response of the vaccine. These are added to vaccines to boost the immune response, to produce more antibodies and longer-lasting immunity, thus minimizing the dose of the antigen required. So now back to the letter. I also became aware that there was no further, again to my understanding, research for an improved adjuvant since the change in legislation in the late 1980s that removed all legal implications for vaccine manufacturers. Further research led me to Dr. Nikolai Petrovsky's work on the vaccine for the SARS-CoV virus. Yeah, he's a South Australian. As you are possibly already aware, Dr. Petrovsky's team have done considerable work on this vaccine and were therefore ahead of the game in relation to the COVID-19 vaccine. Further to this, Dr. Petrovsky's team had also researched and greatly improved the adjuvant component of their vaccine, making it not only safer, but also having an anti-inflammatory effect, particularly important for the COVID-19 virus. Apparently, according to the Petrovsky team, vaccines receiving a rating out of 7 among their peers around the world. It is my understanding the Oxford vaccine being pushed and promoted by the Morrison government, this is the Pfizer one, received a rating of 3 out of 7, apparently not normally high enough to receive funding. yet it has been taken on board by our government. Do you hear that? A 3 out of 7 peer-reviewed rating would normally negate this as a possible subject for government support, and yet it's been adopted by the Morrison government. My understanding is also that this vaccine is causing neurological symptoms on the manufacturer of this and the manufacture of this vaccine has been ceased in the USA, yet is still being pushed in Australia. The vaccine manufactured by the Pedophiles team and tested over a much longer period of time has received a rating of 7 out of 7 from peers around the world and yet has been swept under the carpet. This same vaccine was ranked as number 1 by CSIRO in January this year. Dr. Pedophiles' other research projects are also funded by the US government, but not COVID. After becoming aware of Dr. Pedophiles' work, I had become aware from my own observation that in spite of all I had read in relation to Pedophiles' vaccine, that it was receiving very little media attention. What a surprise. And eventually none. I found this both curious and concerning, especially as the talk of mandatory vaccination persisted over the media. Eventually, I decided to call Dr. Pedophiles at the Adelaide University and did eventually speak to one of his team. To my horror, my concerns of a political agenda became justified. I would like to discuss this matter with someone in the near future, or at least receive a valid explanation as to why this vaccine has been swept under the carpet by our government. As previously mentioned, everyone has the right to a choice of vaccines, and a vaccine the individual feels most confident in, especially in this circumstance of completely new and untested, unused types of vaccines, some of which do not have a satisfactory track record so far. I personally and many others I talk to would only feel confident using the Pedophiles vaccine, which unfortunately being considered by the USA, yet not by the Morrison government, preferring to promote the UK vaccine with a poor rating while suppressing the Pedophiles Adelaide vaccine. I do not wish to take this matter up with the media or an anti-vaccination group to get media attention. As previously mentioned, I'm not anti-vaccination. I will, however, do whatever is required in an attempt to protect myself and my family and those I know and care for, while also alerting the general public from being compelled to have a vaccination with a poor rating and known neurological symptoms when I'm aware of the vaccination that is considered to be not only safe, but also can be tweaked when the virus mutates. I'm grateful to you for reading this email and would be even more grateful to receive a response within the next 2 weeks. No response was received, hence we received it, and hence we're reading it. Short version is this. Pedophiles' team was working on the SARS-CoV virus. When that ceased to be a problem, they ceased work on it. When the COVID turned up, they took that pre-existing work and continued developing it. That's how they got the vaccine so quickly. Now, this vaccine, as I said, has received a 7 out of 7 peer-reviewed rating from international reviews, and yet it's being swept under the carpet by the government and the media. And we are being forced to take a vaccine that would not receive clearance, and it would not receive funding. And that's what the Pfizer vaccine is doing. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many more times we can say it. I don't know how much clearer we can be. Our government is going to poison us. The side effects are known. The pharmaceutical companies developing this stuff are free from prosecution. They're immune. And yet we're going to be injected with this stuff when there are ample alternatives. The time of sitting back and watching is over. You must start taking action. They are advancing this as quickly as they can, and they will kill you. They will kill you.
Hang on a sec. Let me get this straight. You just broke right now. You are saying that the Morrison government had a viable vaccine when? How far back?
April. Do you remember when it first came out and they said, we've got a vaccine, and everybody said, rubbish, you can't get a vaccine that quickly. And they're right, because we didn't know that the Pedophiles team had been working on the SARS work, so all that pre-existing work accelerated their results.
Yeah.
And they actually produced a good vaccine. They took the rubbish out, and it's actually effective. Now, this isn't an endorsement of the pharmaceutical industry. Please understand that. I am very suspicious of the pharmaceutical industry. But it appears the Petrosky team is trying to do good work in a bad industry, and they've actually come up with a result. And it's like the hydroxychloroquine, erythromycin, zinc, and vitamin C combination that was kicked. And this is the same. They shut it down. So they've got a 7 out of 7 vaccine, which is being denied news or support or distribution, and we're forced to take a Pfizer vaccine that got 3 out of 7.
You're shitting me. So hang on. You are generally against vaccinations.
Oh, absolutely.
What about this one?
If it's safe and effective, I have no problem. And it's more the right of the individual to choose. But the individual shouldn't be given an option of a vaccine that is untested and unsafe.
And be mandated.
And absolutely wrong.
But this one also, and I think you've said this in the past, no vaccine's been double-blind tested. Right. If this one was, you'd be happy with it. If this passed the test, safe and effective, there's two hurdles to cover. It's safe to humans, like the side effects are manageable and understandable and okay. And it's effective. Why is no one talking about this? Are you kidding me? There's a vaccine we could have had in April.
This should have gone viral. This smoking gun. This is a smoking gun that Scott Morrison's government, Anthony Albanese's opposition, the Nationals and the Greens are all on board to poisoning the Australian population.
What's in the Pfizer vaccine? You've said heavy metals, aborted fetuses.
Aborted fetal cells, heavy metals. There's so much rubbish in there that is just it serves no purpose. And we
now know from a safety instructor in the UK that it's if you're pregnant, avoid pregnancy for 2 months if you get it.
Avoid pregnancy. This stuff is designed to make you sterile. That's what happens with the vaccines they use in India and Africa. It causes sterility in women.
Well, isn't that just brilliant, Riccardo? Isn't that just brilliant?
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time. How much more evidence do you need? This is a smoking gun. This should go viral. Now, once again, Peter Credlin, Andrew Bolt, Paul Murray, Alan Jones won't talk about any of this because they're paid up shills for somebody else, or they like their pay packet, or they're cowards, or whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter. They are free to live a miserable life if they want. But the fact is, nobody's telling you this. This is the smoking gun. This is the hard evidence. There is a vaccine which appears to be both safe and effective. Fuck me. And you're not hearing about it.
This better get a... Oh, my God. Guys, if you don't share anything else, share this video, okay? It's not for the views. This is This is crap. We should know this stuff, Jesus. I'm going to talk to Monica
Every
Smith.
individual, all you got to do is one thing. Write a letter to your MP, no forced vax. Just keep doing it. Protest out the front of their office. Take your cameras. If there's only 2 of you, that's great too. Take a picture, bang on the door politely and say, no forced vax, no forced vax. Letterbox drop. You can join A1, don't join A1. That's not the point. The point is get the word out there. No forced vax. It's as simple as that.
Oh my God.
You must understand the depravity. Look, it's difficult for the average punter to understand sociopaths because they cannot conceive of that level of evil. They spend most of their time staring into space saying, but why would they hurt me? Because they're sociopaths. That's it.
And just FYI, guys, in the USA, to soften the blow, we've got Obama, George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, who are going to be taking the vaccine publicly to quell any worries about it.
Yeah, right.
But hang on a sec. If they were taking Trump's vaccine, because that's what it sounds like, and Trump's vaccine passed the same hurdles you just outlaid, this wouldn't be a problem, would it?
They're going to get saline solution injected in them. You think these people actually risk anything?
Yeah.
Look at the 3 of them on the screen. Yeah. Look at that. Forget it.
All right.
It's a lie. You know what they rely upon? Okay, it's a primate instinct, folks. And we're part animal and part divine. But the animal part, they've actually done studies. And they will get a picture of the alpha chimp, let's say, and put it on the wall. And the other chimps sit there and they look up and they idolize it. That's why they use these 3 clowns to sell the vaccine. Because they're tapping into the animal part of you that says, I must look up to the leader. No. You become the leader. Look in the mirror. That's the only person you need to start trusting. Trust yourself. Make your own decisions. Ignore this nonsense. These 3 corrupt clowns.
So last week we finished the show by saying you need to get out to the Freedom Day marches, and we had a phenomenal time on the weekend meeting everyone again. Great people, beautiful people. Loved meeting them all, truth speakers. And the Freedom Day marches took place across Australia, one of the interesting things that I said to encourage people to go out was, if you don't stand up now, if you think that it's over just because the lockdowns are done for summer, they will be back. They will be back. What would you say to those people? Will they be back?
They're already back. And that's the point. You're exactly right. We talked about it last week. They ratchet the pressure on, and then they release it a fraction, and you're grateful to them. Stockholm syndrome. But they haven't stopped. And what they're doing is they keep trying new things to see the level of pushback. It's all a test. How cranky are the Australians? And this is what's happened in South Australia. And again, I'm going to read you an SMS that we received, because we've got a fantastic competitive intelligence network out there, and we get a ton of data.
Yeah, just speaking to the mic.
And here's the SMS we received. Quote, and it's about COVID lockdowns. Here's one you won't hear on the news. They are now removing healthy people from their homes in the western suburbs of Adelaide. Last night, my friend's brother was taken away. His 3 grandkids with them, and the granddaughter is friends with the girl from Woodville High School who tested positive. So a girl from Woodville High School tested positive, her friend and all of her family were taken away. 2 cops were there last night, along with some, quote, SA health dickheads in masks and disposable PPE gowns, personal protective equipment. Whole family of 5 forced into a 30-seater bus and told to sit at the very back and taken to a hotel in the city to be quarantined. They are not positive cases. Kiss your livelihoods and your freedoms goodbye for a couple of weeks, or however long you are simply associated with a confirmed case of COVID. This is insanity, people. Wake up. And the covering note to that SMS was, they were being picked up from Pedophiles Gardens in South Australia, and they were screaming and crying, apparently. Now, they didn't pick them up from Unley. They picked them up from Pedophiles Gardens. And if you know Unley's the, let's say the better heeled end of town. And that's what they do. They start at the lower end of town, they work their way up to see how much pushback there is. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you sit back and say nothing, all is lost. They can no longer sit back and just watch this happen. You must respond. You must inundate your local MP. You must terrify them, because they're weak. They're shallow. They're timorous.
That's right.
Push back, and they must slow down. They will have to slow down. Don't push back. If the people in Unley don't support the people in Pedophiles Gardens, they're going to come for the people in Unley as well. Simple as that.
There's no such thing as sitting on a fence. There really isn't. Because you've got an opportunity cost. You either use your time or you don't use your time. If you don't use your time, they will seize whatever they can get their hands of. If you use your time productively, who knows, you might even start the arc in your own state.
There you go.
And that's enraging, because you've been saying since the start of the show, they're coming for your kids, they're coming for your kids, they're coming for your kids. And people are like, nah, come on, Riccardo, you're not coming for your kids.
And we have an allegedly liberal government in South Australia with the Labor government in WA, and they're doing exactly the same thing. But that's the point. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I beg you, understand that your Liberal Party is not the party it once was. Your Labor Party is no longer the party it once was. The Nationals and Greens, well, the Nationals are no longer, and the Greens have always been lunatics. You're being conned. Stop voting for a coloured jersey, because that's all you're doing. Look in the mirror and wake up, please.
So I mentioned at the start of the show that we had an event last night. We reached 2,000 people online, 200 people in person. It was phenomenal. You took 2 hours, 40 minutes of unfiltered Q&A, warts and all, and no moderator to save you. We had some overflow questions from people online that I promised would get them answered. We're going to quickly go through these quick questions. This one's from, his name is Crypto Demon. Hi, Joel. Great work, mate. Riccardo, what can you do for the veteran community?
Okay, two parts of that question. First of all, we clean the public servants out of the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we clean out those pumped-up imposters. These are former serving officers, whom I know personally, and I wouldn't spit on them if they were on fire, because they're just there to, in my opinion, earn a stipend, because they're unemployable elsewhere. So clean out the leadership and clean out the public service who know nothing about what's going on. We replace the decision makers with veterans with hands-on experience of the issues, and so they can navigate the bad laws to make sure the veterans get what they require. That's point number one. Point number two. I've said it before, and here's your problem. There are some that aren't crazy enough, there are some that are too crazy, and then there's the Goldilocks sweet spot where you're just crazy enough for the system to handle you. Well, we've got to open up the system to get everybody. There's the preventative work beforehand, and then there's the support during an operation, and then there's the support after they depart. And that process has to be taken care of. Now, there are processes and there are organisations out there, one that we'll be working closely with, has a 90% success rate of getting the vets off the medication and back into work. You see, the psychiatric industry, like the legal profession, isn't what it purports to be. It's full of psychos that love pumping stuff in their kids. They're like Dr. Mengele. Let's try this stuff. Let's try that stuff. Let's dope you up.
Yeah. Doctors of medicine.
So the psychiatric profession specifically, and with its work with veterans, needs to use my classics phrase, we need a bottle of Drano and a wire brush to clean out the nut jobs that run that. And this is directly from the vets themselves. They don't get the support they need. They don't get the support they want. It's just bundle them away. Now, the Department of Veterans Affairs is off to one side from the Department of Defence. So pusillanimous pipsqueaks like Angus Campbell have nothing to do with the Department of Veterans Affairs, because that's too hard, because he's a great warrior, a great leader, a bemedalled hero. Well, we're going to put the Department of Veterans Affairs under the Department of Defence. You break it, you fix it. So those two parts. One is to make sure that we clean out the actual people making the decisions, because the people in there are patently incompetent. And two, we make sure we get this whole of life treatment for the soldiers, sailors and airmen, and make sure that they get that from start to finish. That includes fixing the psychiatric profession. And the third part to this puzzle is to make sure the Department of Veterans Affairs becomes part of the Department of Defence, and they can start understanding the cost of what they are doing. You see, even after World War I, General Sir Douglas Haig, or Field Marshal Haig, who was responsible for countless deaths on the Western Front, even he spent his retirement raising money for the widows and orphans of the soldiers who died under his command. Not our generals. Oh, no, you're too good for that. You superannuated cowards. You sit there waiting for a potential state governorship or a governor generalship, and you won't open your mouths. So well done, gentlemen, each and every one of you.
What do they drive, these generals?
Ooh.
Well, that's a good question.
It's a good question. So we're going to clean them out. It's a great question, and yes, we're ready to go.
My dad used to describe doctors as doctors of medicine rather than doctors of healing, for good reason. They just drug you up, as you said. Next question I really hesitate to ask because I haven't read into it and I don't feel comfortable talking on things that I haven't looked into. So, spoiler, this is from Jamie Griffin. He said, Riccardo's thoughts on the Port Arthur psyops.
Okay. Just so you're aware, Port Arthur massacre was allegedly perpetrated by a guy called Bryant, who was mentally slow, and he killed numerous people at the cafe down there. That was the trigger by which John Howard then stripped the Australian people of their weapons. That's the popular story. Now, there are allegations, and I call them allegations because I don't have hard evidence. I have an opinion on it, but I don't have hard evidence, that it was a false flag operation. It was supported by other shooters in order to create this scenario for a weak-kneed Prime Minister to strip the people of their firearms. Now, for those of you who don't understand a gun culture, that's fine. You should look it up because Australia used to have a very intelligent, sensible gun culture. But Howard was directed to remove it, and he did. So he took the guns away. So the allegation is this was a false flag operation designed to get that effect. There is a lot of circumstantial evidence that I've examined, which indicates there is a lot of, let's say, compelling evidence that it might be a false flag. The accuracy of the shots by an alleged mentally slow individual. The fact that shots were being heard while he was on the phone to other people. There's a lot there. Have a look at yourself, make up your own mind. What we do need to do, I can tell you this, is conduct again, another Royal Commission. My God, we're going to have some Royal Commissions into Port Arthur to determine the truth, because what is critical in a relationship between the government and the people is absolute transparency. So you need to demand and get the truth, because things like this have to be opened up. Yeah. There are too many cover stories, too many lies, and false flags are well known. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was the trigger for the Vietnam War, was a false flag. You can look it up online. It's been declassified. Yeah. It was a false flag. And false flag, just so you're aware, it's the origin of that term was, so for example, a British naval vessel could fly a false flag. So they're against the French. Let's say there's a war with the French, so they run a French flag. And so that allows the British vessel under a false flag to get close to the French vessel, but they may not engage in hostility under a false flag. So they have to quickly whip down the false flag, whip up the real flag, and then they can attack. So it's a ruse of war. And there's nothing wrong with the ruses of war. But there's a big problem when it's used against the people of the nation by their government. See, this is the textbook definition of terror: politically motivated violence. And the Australian people have been victims of politically motivated violence initiated by their government for decades.
Yeah.
And there is strong circumstantial evidence that Port Arthur was one of those.
Yeah.
So it needs to be investigated, it needs to be looked at, and the truth revealed to the Australian people. And if there was a false flag, and if it was a lie, then everybody from the Prime Minister down should be held to account.
As I said, I'm uncomfortable talking about it because I haven't read into this topic, but I'm all for more information, that's
Absolutely.
for sure. But you know what's funny, for someone that hasn't looked into this topic very much, this is just sort of what I notice. Why does it matter? Why does it matter whether it happened or not? It shouldn't have a bearing on the discussion, because let's assume that it did happen. Let's assume this was a real thing, and the mainstream narrative on it is it was a crazed guy, and he shouldn't have a gun. It doesn't matter. A good guy with a gun would have stopped him. That's the point. Have people not listened to the debates in America? Wherever guns have been outlawed, for example, on university campuses, on school areas, gun safe zones, what do they call them? Red flag laws over there. Wherever you can't have a gun, guess what? That's where the gunman goes. If you say you can't have a gun in this 20 square meters, where do you think they're going to do a bloody shooting? Where you can't concealed carry. Anyway, but that's just me looking in.
It's a good point, because, as you say, was the Howard government's response to that incident appropriate? And the patent answer is no. Yeah. But you had some tremendous statistics about women preventing crimes because they were armed. Can you just run the...
No, absolutely. It's so we call it the great leveler, these guns. Why is that? I'm the biggest feminist. I am like a 5th or 6th generation feminist, just because people just don't understand this. But I am all for women carrying a gun. They should. How many pieces of footage have we seen where a woman's pulled out a gun when someone's tried to kidnap their child, a grown man, 2 times her size, and she's whipped out a gun? I'll tell you how often it happens. It's called the Great Leveler because 98.5% of the time where she has a gun and someone attacks her and someone wants to kill her, rape her, take her child or whatever, she stops him. The Great Leveler, 98%. Why are you not a feminist? That's my question. Why? Why is there an overlap between third-wave feminists and people that don't want you to get a gun? Why? It's because it's all talk, and it's because they're just using you. It's divide and conquer. They do it to the blacks, they do it to the Hispanics, they do it with women. And that's funny. In fact, the FBI statistics from 2017 revealed that anywhere from 500,000 to 3 million cases where someone would have been murdered, raped, someone would have stolen something from them, or another crime would have happened. 500,000 to 3 million cases are where the person stopped it. 500,000 to 3 million cases, that's where a crime was stopped. That is good. That is the definition of good. And I don't care what you say. I think it was Thomas Sowell who put it best in the UK. He said burglaries in the UK, if you want to be a burglar, that's a very safe occupation because you can't defend yourself. There's no castle doctrine where you can defend your house. And it's the truth of it.
It is. There's a great meme on the internet where it's a picture on a front lawn and it says, proud member of the NRA, and underneath an arrow saying, but my neighbour's not.
Yeah.
Now, where do you think the crook's going to go?
Anyway, guys, so look, one day we will do a longer segment on guns.
We should. That's really important.
But Tim Pool taught me this a while ago. He said, with a lot of the conspiracies that we touch on, and I call it conspiracy because I haven't looked into this yet, but with a lot of conspiracies, well, often they chuck these, in Hillary Clinton's emails, for example, they'd often chuck these nuggets of nonsense, something that's completely stupid, that there's no, like a monkey dancing with a hat on his head, or they chuck something really crazy in the email so that you're reading through it, and you're like, this is a bombshell, this email is amazing. And then what happens is the person or the conspiracy theorist would go out and tell people, and they'd be like, okay, follow you. But this little red flag here, no, the whole thing's, let's throw the whole thing out. It completely discredits all of the valid stuff. I worry that with the Port Arthur situation, I don't want to get drawn into I want to read into it, I want more information, but I don't want to get into a situation where they're saying, you're a conspiracy theorist, this is a true thing that happened, it happened a while ago, why can't you accept it? It's a mainstream narrative. I say, flip the table, I'm not going to argue by your rules, it doesn't matter. I don't care that many people died. You should have had better laws. More people should have been armed. A good man could have stopped that. And so don't play by their rules, guys. I don't care. I don't care about the landscape they've put on this argument. But let's move on. The final question is from Liberty Mate. Go subscribe to Liberty Mate, guys. He's got a solid following and he's got some really good videos. He asked this question, which he's going to chuck on his channel. He says, what will be done with all the assets sold to China unlawfully, and who will pay for what they've done?
Good. I answered this in part last night, and the short answer is this. The Chinese Communist Party is a criminal cartel. We just take them back and we say to Xi, sorry, mate, they're ours again and you can't have them. Go away. Any Chinese billionaire who's bought or acquired Australian land or assets or whatever will have it removed with no compensation. Why is that? Because you don't become a billionaire in China unless you're a card-carrying member of the Chinese Communist Party and therefore a criminal. And we don't support nor compensate criminals. So we're just going to take it back. Now, China's going to write us a strongly worded letter. They might even take us to The Hague, at which point we go, we don't care. We're a sovereign nation and you're a crook. So no compensation. Who's going to pay for what they've done? We're going to hit them up with pick a number, $1 trillion reparations bill for what they've done to the Australian economy.
Yeah.
So they can physically pay for it.
Yeah.
Physically. And that might come in the form of the land we've taken back, who knows. And their facilitators, the major political parties, will also be wrapped up into that little process as well. So we're going to come out of this okay. We've been robbed, we've been destroyed, and we'll come out of it okay. They will pay.
I do want to push back on some of the white nationalists that watch the channel. I did work in property for a very long time. I know for a fact that, and this is just to give you guys the other side of the story, just a little bit. I know for a fact there are a lot of Chinese people, because it's over 1 billion people, there's a lot of people, a lot of different opinions, a lot of Chinese people, a lot of wealthy Chinese people trying to get out of China because of this reason. And they're trying to invest in other countries like Australia. It's very, very hard. I'm trying to inject some nuance into this, guys. It's very, very hard to tell who is on whose side. And so we don't need a government that's fighting us as well. It's hard enough trying to distinguish the good actors and the bad actors from China. We need to work together on this. Otherwise, we're going to be dealing with a situation where not even Russia will want to back China, because eventually China's going to come for Russia. Mark my words. I hate to be right when I'm 60 years old. It's going to suck. But let's move on. We need to talk about the US election. I'm going to try and cover this as briefly as possible, but there have been very significant updates in Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia in the court situation. If you listen to nothing else, this is basically what's happening. You've got a situation where Joe Biden's trying to run away with these swing states, and Donald Trump is slowly picking these up through legality and using the Constitution properly. Now, just as a general idea of the timeline of things going on, because guys, you will not find this anywhere else unless you listen to Tim Pool. This is the timeline. We had the election on November 4th. We had a number of irregularities that have been showing up. The media has been telling you, it's Joe Biden elect, it's Joe Biden elect. It's not Joe Biden elect until Donald Trump says stand down to his troops, not his troops, to his Trump MAGA supporters, and then they stand down. He hasn't done that yet. So he has every constitutional reason and every legal reason to see this out. So November 4th, the election happened. The votes don't get certified by the Electoral College until December 14th. Now, what does that mean? That means that's when all the states come together and they say, yep, Pennsylvania, we voted for Biden or Trump, here's 20 electoral votes. The problem is a lot of those things haven't been resolved yet. So we're still waiting, and they have to be resolved by December 14th. If we end up in a situation where some states still have legal cases pending, for example, in the Supreme Court, then that means no one gets those Electoral College votes, just FYI. Now, the next date after that, because December 14th, even that is not the last date, believe it or not, and I learned this 2 weeks ago. By the 5th of January, Congress representatives from the House and Senate, they must have resolved their disputes with the Electoral College votes. So after December 14th, when the Electoral College comes together and they all make their votes, the electors say this, between December 14th and January 5th, House representatives and congressmen, House representatives who are congressmen and women and senators who say, we have these problems with these votes. It takes one House representative and one senator to dispute something. If they want to throw or question these issues, if one House representative, one Senate comes and says, we have an issue with this, then they have to have a 2-hour debate on that state. And then there's a vote, and you can revoke the state's votes if a majority of both the House and the Senate agree as a majority. It's very unlikely to happen, but I'm just going to tell you guys that it's not resolved until after the 5th of January. After the 5th of January, because this is going on, Mike Pence will be the acting president of the United States because this is a situation where it hasn't been resolved yet. Mm-hmm. So Donald Trump will be in the backseat for a little while until this is resolved. And then on January 20th, that is Inauguration Day. That is when it takes place. And we will definitely know who is then the president of the United States. So there's a lot up there. No one else will tell you this. Everyone told you. Everyone's 2 months late. Everyone's telling you that it's over. But no, they called it. They called it early. Now, with regards to the states, as I said, there are a few states which we're going to be covering: Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, in that order. Now, are you surprised that Rudy Giuliani at this crucial time tests positive for COVID-19? I know, right? Because remember how we were saying, it's, this person got COVID-19 and it's opportunistic, and here we've got Rudy Giuliani. It's a farce, isn't it? So we've got Arizona. The Republican chair Kelly Ward takes vote lawsuit to the state Supreme Court. He's basically trying to get the votes thrown out because of a number of irregularities that were happening there. So that's just a quick FYI. Arizona is still in play. Mm-hmm. This is what's going on in Michigan. We've got Dominion's buy one, get 10 free in Michigan. There are Trump's lawyers who have had a very big win in Michigan, where they're having a circuit judge who's decided to allow investigation into 22 Dominion voting machines, which is excellent, in Antrim County to examine the result of the November 3rd US election. The judge has ordered an investigation 8 hours to have access to these machines and conduct their forensic research. And this will be very interesting because Dominion have been very shrouded. In fact, the Michigan House Committee, they threatened Dominion CEO with a subpoena. Now, why would you do that? Why don't you trust Dominion? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's because they've been quiet all this time. They haven't said anything. You'd think they'd want to come out and repudiate these claims being made about them because it's defamation. They've been silent. They've actually been silent. And does this surprise you? George Soros appoints the chair of Smartmatic, the parent company, to lead Open Society Foundations. Open Society Foundations is, of course, one of George Soros's companies.
The conscience of the world. That's what he decided he would be.
Isn't that funny? And for those of you who don't realize, Smartmatic and Dominion are very similar in what they're doing. Is Smartmatic the parent company of Dominion?
I don't know.
But I think they do. They do voting machines as well, guys, just an FYI. So that's Michigan. We've also got Pennsylvania, which is certainly in play. Now, last night at midnight, there was a deadline. In Pennsylvania, this is what's been happening basically in Pennsylvania, guys. I'll explain a few. The state legislators, they tried last year to amend the Constitution of Pennsylvania, the state, so that they could allow for more mail-in ballots. Now, the problem with that is everyone kept saying they're doing this for COVID, but they did it last year. This has been a long time in the making because they know mail-in ballots are fraudulent and have a higher rejection rate. In fact, it was the New York Times that said they have a 2% rejection rate. They said this in 2012. Now, the state legislators, they tried to amend it. However, they didn't do it properly. What you're meant to do when you're over there and you're amending the Constitution to allow mail-in balloting is you're meant to go through a proper process. Part of it is a referendum at the next election. They never had that. They're also meant to put it in at least 2 local newspapers in every county, that's a lot of work. They didn't do that. They're meant to do all of these things to amend it, and they didn't do that. A lower court judge, and this is late in November, a lower court judge in the state ruled that this was done unconstitutionally, and that ended up getting elevated to the Supreme Court of the state, which is the highest court in the state. And that was the Supreme Court of the state overturned the decision. They said that they were too late. They said you should have done it earlier. But this doesn't make any sense, because if you did it earlier, they would have thrown it out as well, because they would have said you're too early. No damage has been done. You should have done it, because they're saying you should have done it before the election. It doesn't make any sense. But so basically this is being elevated to the Supreme Court level. Justice Alito is one of the Supreme Court judges who's overlooking this dispute, and he said he brought the emergency date for a response from both sides on this. He brought the date to midnight last night. Mm-hmm. We now have an argument from both sides, and it could have been announced right now, but right now we're waiting to hear if the Supreme Court will take this on as a case. If they take it on, this will draw the votes, the 20 electoral votes for Pennsylvania into doubt, and no one will get them for the December 14th date. This is cutting it very close. If they take it on, then that's 20 electoral votes Trump nor Biden will be getting, and it'll be a very big win for the Trump campaign. This is going to be interesting, guys. This could be a big turning point, and we'll find out very soon what happens with that. On top of that, the last state I want to talk about is Georgia. Now, of course, we had 4 suitcases that were pulled out from under this desk, and what happened, this was 1 o'clock I think it was like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, this ended up happening. They kicked out all of the poll watchers, the Republican poll watchers, the media. They kicked them all out of the room, and everyone was meant to leave. However, there was 4 or 5 people that didn't leave. And what did they do? They started counting votes again. They were meant to resume in the morning, but they returned very quickly, and they just kept counting votes. They pulled these 4 briefcases out from under the desk. Each one can hold 6,000 ballots in it, and they started counting them in these voting machines that they had. So there's 24,000 votes, more than enough to flip, and it's all on camera right here. Bombshell.
I'm shocked. I told you, shocked.
Now, after this came out, the Georgia governor finally called for a signature audit. The Georgia governor's Republican, and it sounds like he's a never-Trumper, and he has been fighting this tooth and nail because I think he got elected on this, and this will not look good on him. Last thing, a professor ran some tests, I think in Georgia, on some of the Dominion voting machines that were there. In the votes that he put in, he found that 37 more votes went for Biden, which shouldn't have happened. There should be 0 errors. I think the 37 votes that he put in, that accounted for 0.27% of the total votes he put in. I think that's right. I need to check that. That is the exact same percentage that Joe Biden is ahead, which is insane. Watch this space. I don't know what's going to happen with Georgia, but if they do a signature recount, it's going to be very, very interesting. And this came in last night. I didn't know this was a thing, but Texas sues Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin at the Supreme Court over election rules. They're not happy at all, because you've got a situation where you've got, because this is a union of states, guys, they're all of equal standing. And when Texas and some of these other states like Pennsylvania, Texas and Florida, for example, being Republican states, say, what the hell, man, you just ruined the election for us. We did it well. You guys changed your rules.
Yep.
So now they're challenging it. And so, look, we'll see how that goes. This could be significant. I didn't see this coming at all. This could, theoretically, it could overturn the whole thing, actually. But we'll see. No promises. And the last comment I wanted to make was the Electoral College votes could be split theoretically in all of these states that we're talking about, which would lead to a Joe Biden victory.
Well, the members of the Electoral College are not actually required to vote in accordance with the results.
That's right.
Which seems like an odd decision, but it allows them the flexibility to take in consideration other factors, and that can work both ways, for good and for ill.
Yeah.
So your point's well made. The variables are quite significant. This is anything but clear. So if anybody makes a claim of certainty, I think they're talking through their hat, because there are so many variables still to be played out.
Absolutely. As I said last week, guys, the future of the Republic is basically hinging on the Georgia runoff elections on January 5th. This is going to be very interesting. I had a change of opinion, actually. I said, look, I don't know if this is right or not. Maybe I'm more malleable on this than I've let on. But I said that I don't think they're going to win Georgia. I reckon the Democrats are going to win the 2 seats in the Senate. And for those of you who don't realize, right now, the way the Senate stands, you need 51 senators to form a majority. The Republicans have 50. There are 2 up for grabs in Georgia, and the Democrats are currently on 48. So if the Democrats win Georgia, these 2 Senate seats, then Kamala Harris, if Joe Biden wins the presidency, will be the tiebreaker. However, I did want to make this point that in Georgia, a Democrat senator hasn't been elected in 20 years. So if there's irregularities, it'll be very fascinating to see if they do win this, because don't forget, Donald Trump will not be on the ballot this time. They won't get the Trump bump, the Republicans, the never Trumpers. Now, because of that, we need to remember that if the Democrats win this, but Donald Trump wins the presidency, guess what? Donald Trump will win the Senate, because he'll be having Mike Pence being the tiebreaker, which is a much more preferable thing than Kamala Harris, who has the most progressive record in 2019 voting, more progressive than Bernie Sanders. It makes sense now why Kamala Harris hasn't yet resigned from a Senate seat. Obama resigned 6 days after he won the presidency. On the 10th of November, he resigned.
Makes sense.
Senate, yeah. So these are things you won't hear anywhere else, guys, but here it is. It's all in one place for you, and just to keep you in the loop. A pollster has claimed that Biden's victory defied critical measures that have a 100% accuracy rate in predicting the winner, and says anyone who viewed the results objectively would conclude Trump triumphed. Now, I could explain this to you myself, but I can't speak 1,000 words a minute. I wanted to show you guys just briefly exactly what Tim Pool has detailed on this.
Have you seen what recently came out with Democracy Institute?
No.
So they're pollsters. They predicted Trump was going to win based on several metrics. This guy came out recently on Life, Liberty, and Levin on Fox News and said, not only did Joe Biden, or I shouldn't say not only, but I'll say this is my personal opinion. He pointed out there are non-polling bellwether metrics that are never wrong, like party registration and voter enthusiasm, never wrong. Joe Biden not only beat every single bellwether metric that was against him, he won in almost every single bellwether region. So you've got the 3 bellwether states, he lost all of them. And you've got 19 bellwether townships, he lost 18.
Yeah.
So you hear about this kind of stuff. And Sam Harris, I did a segment about this earlier. Sam Harris was talking about, he tweeted a story from the New York Times. Why do people believe the election was rigged? What rational thinking person hears that Joe Biden, who didn't campaign, who was in his basement half the time, had no one show up to his rallies, failed in every bellwether metric. So these are, again, registration numbers across the state, the amount of primary votes he got, the media attention he got, Google searches he got, mask sales, more silly mask and cookie sales, but these do always show who wins. And 18 out of 19 bellwether townships and the 3 bellwether states. That all happened. Ignore all other accusations of fraud or whatever. And then you come out and say that, a regular person's going to be like, what? But then he made a better point. He said, show someone the data from the night of the election that Trump had improved his vote count among the working class, the white working class, minorities, the black community, and they would easily conclude he was overperforming for an incumbent and was clearly the winner. But after all of that, Joe Biden is the single greatest president in American history who got more votes than Barack Obama, who had tens of thousands of people rallying for him, one of the most popular presidents in history, who holds a 95% plus approval rating among Democrats. Then people say, you take that, and I'm not talking about fraud. Then you take the down ballot victories and the undervotes in the hundreds of thousands for Joe Biden. And then you ask people if they believe that Joe Biden won, and they're going to tell you no. I'm sorry.
When you say down ballot victories, that means a bunch of Republicans.
The Republicans won in every state race. They won every state. They won. They won massive gains in the House, and are just doing better and better as time goes on. They held the Senate, so it was tremendous. Other pollsters have said that this looks like your typical incumbent victory. The incumbent is on the ticket. People go to vote for him, and they vote down ballot in favor of the party, so the party wins. Joe Biden, the greatest president in American history. Congratulations.
80 million votes. And historically, the incumbent always usually gets in. Except
so
for
I'm
very
not.
rare
I am not saying any fraud at all.
You're just saying aliens.
No. Yes, right. Alien. No, yeah. Listen. What I'm saying right now, I am not accusing anybody of fraud. Okay, you can talk about the evidence. I'm just pointing out, Joe Biden did all of these things, and that being true, these are all true things. Joe Biden is the greatest president in American history. Period. End of question. No, that's it. That's the only conclusion.
Is that NewsGuard?
And he was in his basement the whole time.
Brilliant.
So, guys, look, make of it what you want, but that is what I saw, and those are the irregularities. If Joe Biden won, he's the greatest president in American history, beat the first black president in America. That's amazing. But let's move on. We will see how that develops. We will see how these court cases develop, but we will be back next week and we'll be discussing that. I wanted to touch on this. I haven't even showed you this yet, Riccardo, but I think we've got a hive mind on this stuff. So there's been a report that's come out from the Christchurch shooting. They prosecuted the man, Brendan Tarrant, that ended up doing the shooting, and there was a big report that came out because of it. And the report on the Christchurch mosque attack found that New Zealand security agencies focused almost exclusively on Islamist terror, and the shooter was radicalised in Australia. And I'll quickly read this. The New Zealand Royal Commission has released an 800-page report on the 2019 Christchurch mosque attack. Among its findings were the revelations that the shooter had engaged with the far-right Australian political groups on social media and donated money to far-right organisations. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern noted that YouTube was a significant source of information and inspiration to the shooter. The report also found that New Zealand's security agencies were focused on almost exclusively on the threat of Islamic terrorism at the time of the attack in 2019. Ardern apologises on behalf of the government for the failings. YouTube.
Strangely enough, I happened to be online when this happened. I saw the video before it was removed. I saw the run-through rehearsal video. I saw the initial reports, accurate reports, that this guy was not a right-wing extremist. He was actually a left-wing eco-terrorist.
Eco-fascist.
There you go, eco-fascist. Yeah. And all this stuff got washed away. And now we have to believe that this former junior woodchuck of the global communists had the intelligence agencies working on Islamic terror. This is when the entire West was making every excuse under the sun that if someone ran down the road with a knife yelling Alan's snack bar, that it was a psychological condition. This is complete rubbish. This is you can't even call it a whitewash. It's just bald-faced lies from a bald-faced lying government with some communist toady as prime minister. They rig the results better than Biden does. They haven't been exclusively focused on Islamic terror because they've been telling us for years there is no Islamic terror. This is just a lie. And what was the YouTubes? Oh, there you go. They're rerunning. They're expecting you to have the attention span of a carp because they're saying the YouTube was a significant player. This sounds remarkably like the YouTube video made by some obscure southern individual in the United States, which apparently led to the attack on the US embassy and the compound in Libya, which led to the death of the ambassador and 4 others. 13 hours. They made a film about the incident called 13 Hours.
Benghazi? Was it?
Benghazi.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton, well done.
Yeah, same thing. Oh, it's a
Your
YouTube video. YouTube video. Absolutely, yeah. No problem. No false flags coming out of Christchurch. Now, it's alleged, and I'm not saying this is true, but it's alleged that a gentleman called, what was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager name? Let me think. Oh, that's right, Podesta.
Oh, John Podesta.
John Podesta visited New Zealand a week preceding the Islamic terror attack.
Kidding.
Now, I'm not saying that's true, but we have, as I said, wide-ranging intelligence sources that provide us with data, and we sort of try to make some sense of it. But this, if I had to put money down on a bet right now, this is just a complete fabrication, and the right-wing groups are the problem. We know it's not the problem. There is no right-wing groups out here. They're just people that want their country back. See, the left always accuse the right of doing exactly what they do. So whenever you hear the left make an accusation, you know they're doing it. This is just a lie. It's a bald-faced lie.
It's entirely possible that this was a real shooting, and it's entirely possible that he was radicalised by white nationalists. So, in fact, we've butted heads with white nationalists in Australia. However, I do question them targeting YouTube because I've seen this happen before in the US. You know what they do? The people at the New York Times, the people at CNN, the people at MSNBC, the mainstream media over there, they do a hit piece on alternative media who are on YouTube because they don't like the market share they're getting. They don't like that people like, the Monica Smiths of the USA are doing a good job. That's what they think. And so what do? They call up their mate because they're all mates. They say, can you do a hit piece? This is the New York Times. My New York Times mate, can you do a hit piece on them? What happens? New York Times does a hit piece. They accuse the sponsors that are running ads on our channel, for example, or another channel. And they say, this sponsor is sponsoring terrorism. This sponsor is a right-wing fascist. And then what happens? The sponsor freaks out. They go to YouTube. They say, what the hell, man? Why are you putting my videos on white nationalist videos? And then all of a sudden, YouTube's like, right, this is our bottom line you're messing with. All of you guys, you're gone. And then who do they get rid of? They get rid of they get rid of Jones. They get rid of Alex Jones. They get rid of Sargon of Akkad. They get rid of a bunch of other people who are not even, they're not white nationalists. Are you crazy? And they're coming for us, Rick. They're coming for us, mark my words.
Well, this is the same Jacinda Ardern that you played a clip of her threatening with that goat-like smile. Oh, I'm sure that they'll want to spend. They'll take the jab or the test rather than spend another 2 weeks because she's a junior woodchuck communist. Has been. She didn't win the election. She stole the election. She's another idiot puppet like Xi Jinping and the rest of them, like Scott Morrison. She couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery either. It's a lie. It's bald-faced lies. Your governments are lying to you. Our foreign governments are lying to you. Folks, you got to wake up. Just wake up. Do your own research. Stop believing everybody else. Don't believe us. Do your own research.
By the way, I do think she actually won that election. If you got a bucket of all the legitimate votes, but this just came out this week.
Oh, what a surprise.
No jab, no school. Brilliant. This is Western Australia. I don't know why Western Australia is ahead of the curve with all this. You'd expect it to be Victoria first.
Labor Party.
But yeah, Labor Party in WA, for those of you that don't know, because we had that event last night and a couple nights ago, you mentioned that in WA 2016, the Public Health Act, to look it up, vaccination, section 158, people, your clothes can be removed. You can be restrained to receive a vaccine. Look at it, guys. It's very, very scary. And then this, no jab, no school. Great. What do you say, Riccardo?
No jab, no job. No jab, no school. No jab, no transport. no jab, no social benefits, no jab, no movement, no jab, no kids. They'll lock you up. They're coming for you. And I keep getting questions. What do you mean they're coming for you? They're going to take them away. That's what they do. They're trying to frighten you into submission. It is, as I said, definition, textbook terrorism, politically motivated violence. Your government are now officially terrorists. They are terrorizing you into behavior.
Each week I come here and I ask you these questions, but and you guys consume it. If you don't believe it, then you have to step up and you have to tell me at what point will you accept that this is happening. What standard of evidence will you accept? Because when you answer that and then we reach that point and you can't move the goalposts again, you've got to say, yes, Joel, the Uyghurs are having their organs harvested. It's not a conspiracy theory. Anyway, WA has opened their borders to New South Wales and Victoria. Why do I bring this up? Because next year the ARC will be going on tour to a number of different states. Now, which state at this stage do you think we're going to be going to first and second?
After a short break over the new year, we'll be doing Southern New South Wales and Victoria. And we're doing great work here in Queensland in terms of building numbers, but Australia should know that the Victorians have really stepped up, and every electorate, I think bar one or two, has supporter groups ready to go.
You're kidding.
Absolutely not.
Well done.
These people are stepping up brilliantly.
That's excellent.
Led by our Victorian State Coordinator, former wrestler.
Codename Hercules?
Codename Hercules, named Craig Cole.
Yeah.
Looks and sounds like Chopper Read. He's got the heart the size of Ayers Rock, and he's spent his life assisting underprivileged youth to take control of their lives and make something of themselves. So a big-hearted hero is leading the push down in Vic, and the Victorians are stepping up.
Excellent.
They're doing a great job. So that's the first one. And then after that, SA, WA, and NT.
Oh, South Australia and WA.
Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. And
we've got grubs all around the country to clean out, so we need to build the A1 army that's going to do it.
Awesome. We have to see all of our deplorables, as they might say. And we also have, just to FYI, guys, why WA? Because they've got an election coming up in March next year.
That's correct.
And I want you guys to take this lesson. We are in Victoria now. We'll be we are in Queensland now. We're going to be in Victoria soon, then SA, then Western Australia. What does that tell you? It tells you that Riccardo's not going to descend from a cloud and just solve each state. You've got to do that yourself. Well done, Victoria. Well done. Your supporter groups, you have all supporter groups in all these areas. Beautiful. That's excellent. We need that everywhere across Australia, and that's why Riccardo is going around Australia and spreading.
I'm very optimistic about WA because we're already receiving calls of support as a result of last night's live stream. 3,000 by the end of it. 3 hours worth. Calls of support saying, and these are people that I know. The regiment, that's great. Hello, I'm X from G Troop, or I'm Y from 1 Squadron. We've got a place for you to stay at when you're doing this region. We've got a place for you to stay when we're doing that region.
Excellent.
So the lads are stepping up nicely.
Legendary. I'm looking forward to that because thanks to the donors of the show, I've been able to cover these things. And again, last night, guys, we reached 3,000 views because you guys allowed me to be there. Honestly, I'm just really thankful, and it's been really humbling meeting these people. I did want to, before we get into our very intense topic, I did want to touch on this issue of where the West is going. And it's from an intellectual heavyweight, Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is a very prominent conservative professor, and his insights are absolutely invaluable.
Tom, I had dinner with Milton Friedman about 18 months before he died. He was still in perfect health at this stage, as far as anyone. As you know, he was in robust health and mentally acute until he was gone, really. And we were talking about his career. And then he became silent for a moment, and he said, the challenge for my generation, meaning mine, Milton Friedman's generation, was to establish an intellectually rigorous defense for human liberty. And then he pointed to me and said, the challenge for your generation will be to keep your liberty.
Yes.
How's that project, my generation's project of holding on to liberty, coming along?
Not well. One of the reasons I'm glad to be as old as I am is that it means I may be spared seeing what's going to happen to this country, either internally or as a result of international complications.
You think that America's greatest days are gone, full stop, that it's irreversible? Or
Nothing is irreversible.
All right.
Nothing is irreversible. But I think that we're like a team that's coming to bat in the bottom of the ninth, 5 runs behind. We can win it, but this is not I wouldn't bet the rent money on it.
Last question. What would you say, I was talking about Milton talking to my generation, what would you say to the next generation, what would you say to your grandchildren's generation about what they should be, the America for which they should be preparing themselves?
Since I don't know what that America is going to be, I don't want to say anything to them. But I don't think. By the time they get here, I think the issue will have been settled one way or the other.
By then, it will be irreversible.
It'll be either we will have pull out of the dive, as it were, or else it will be all over.
You know, I like to end shows on a kind of upbeat note. Are there any cookie recipes for Christmas you'd like to share, Tom? Thomas Sowell.
That was 5 years ago. That was just before Trump won his election, and that was during a Obama presidency. I don't play these videos because I enjoy it. I play it because I want you guys to remember you can lose. There's no such thing. We're not able to hand in this assignment and do an all-nighter just before. You've got to put the hard yards in because we are there. We are at the all-nighter.
I love Thomas Sowell. You know, he's got more genius in his little finger than I'll ever have in my entire body, but he is so wrong. And it pisses me off and it pains me to say it. Okay. The great America they're talking about, its best days are behind it. That's predicated on a quite puerile, immature, thoughtless view of history. Everything is a cycle. Everything's a cycle, folks. What's a great country? Where everything works? Or is it a great country where there is a struggle and they are building something that works? Or it's a country that's in decline and there are those that are slowing the decline and fighting against the tide of evil and destruction? Or is it a great country, the country that is on its knees and it builds itself back up again? And they're all great countries. That's what this misses. I quoted a movie, and ladies and gentlemen, do yourself a big favor. If you want to finish on a high note at the end of this, Google the short film called The Butterfly Circus. Just watch it. Greatness is a result of effort against adversity. That's it. And it doesn't matter where on the cycle you are. That's greatness. And there's a line from that film: the greater the adversity or the greater the challenge, the more glorious the triumph. So please, for God's sake, stop wishing you were somewhere else. You are where you are, and you have this God-given opportunity to become something you've never become before, to do things you've never done before. And as I say to my when I consult, and these are the chief executives, they're at the top of their game, and I say to them, without a word, without an inkling of shame, I say, you are not even at the beginning of what you can do with the rest of your life. You know, nowhere near the end. I don't care how old you are, I don't care how infirm you are. Whilst there is life in you, there is hope. So, I love Tom Sowell. Oh God, I love listening to this guy. But ladies and gentlemen, we are exactly where we are. And we have the opportunity to become the greatest country on earth. But we don't do that because we wait for greatness to be given to us. This cycle, it's up to us, and it doesn't matter where it is. Now, look, I'm 60 years of age. I've said it a number of times. My entire life has been holding back against this tide of evil, ever since I was a child. And I remember back in the 60s watching the degradation of TV shows and just knowing this is inappropriate, this is wrong. in my life, most of my life has been holding it back, this inexorable movement of the communists, of evil, you name it. And now, at this point in history, in 2020, we're beginning to slow down that movement. And we are very close to halting it and slowly pushing it back. Now, I've spent my 60 years on the planet doing my job, and I'm pretty proud of what I've done and continuing to do. And so your generation, Joel, you've got to take that strain, take that weight, and start to push it back. Now, I've had a great life, not because of me, but my life, the opportunity I've had has been fantastic. You're going to have a great life too, except it'll be fundamentally different to mine. The old saying, hard times produce good men produce good times, and there's a cycle. So it doesn't matter where you are on the cycle, accept it and get on with it. And stop throwing your hands up saying, like, oh, I can't believe he said it. I won't be here to see it. What an appalling statement. With your last breath, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to stand up for this country, for your children and your grandchildren. What choice do you have? No. Every moment is an opportunity for greatness. And it doesn't matter where you are on the cycle, where you'd like to be. Where you are is where you are, and you've got to deal with it. Step up, save your family, save the country. It's as simple as that.
History fortunes the bold, and it remembers the bold. I think it was at the start of the movie Troy, with where Achilles is slept in, and the young boy was sent to wake him up to go fight the biggest man he's seen in his life. That's what he said, and he says, "I wouldn't want to fight him." As Achilles gets on his horse, and Achilles says, "That's why history will not remember you." And that's the truth of it, guys. Do you want to be? You can have an average life, absolutely, but even an average life is under threat right now. You're a conspiracy theorist if you go out without a mask. Fight now while you sort of have a choice before you don't have a choice. Because if you fight when you don't have a choice, it might be too late. That's the truth of it.
Let me just finish with this. Just hang on. And this is a message to every Australian out there. And whether you believe it applies to you or not, it does. Because every one of us, as I said, has to become someone we've never come before. We have to become heroic, truly heroic. This is the dedication in the book. The heroes of history and poetry may be cruel, violent, self-seeking, ruthless, intemperate, and unjust, but they were never cowards. They do not falter nor give way. They do not despair in the face of almost hopeless odds. They have the strength and stamina to achieve whatever they set their minds and wills to do. They would not be heroes if they were not men and women of courage. This is the very meaning of heroism, which gives the legendary heroes almost the stature of gods. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a choice. You either step up or you don't. You either win or lose. I've made my choice. Time you made yours.
Just like this California sheriff who told Gavin Newsom, the trash governor there, the county will not be blackmailed, bullied, or used as muscle against residents. Why do I highlight him? Because it's testicular fortitude, it's intestinal fortitude that we see there, and it's very important. What do you have for us, Riccardo?
Okay, here's another opportunity. Everything's an opportunity. Every miserable story we tell is an opportunity to step up. And if you don't, your enemies will take it as a sign of weakness and cowardice and stupidity, and they'll keep pushing. Last one. And it's to do with abused children remaining with their abusers. Now, it's not unusual for the family court to return abused children to their abusers or directing the children to remain with their abusers. Why is that? Doesn't make sense, does it? Well, in a fair and just world, it wouldn't. But this ain't that. It seems to be an apparent prevalence in the legal profession to protect pedophiles. Now, we know that. We've had it at the highest level. Royal Commissioner. If we reveal these pedophile names, it will erode trust in the judicial system. Or there is no trust in the judicial system. We know exactly what's going on. The weak-kneed lawyers want to stay in good with the judges, so they smile and nod to the judge no matter how insane the assessment is. And so the legal profession protects pedophiles. Secondly, children are not able to communicate their abuse due to a sense of betrayal, fear and shock. Just can't do it. They're confused. They're children. It is the worst form of betrayal. Without that trust, their entire lives are damaged. Now, here's a little secret that nobody in the criminal justice system wants to admit, but just about something like in excess of 90% of men in prison, the ones that are recidivists, they're constantly back, were sexually abused as boys. Classic case, Chopper Reed. Yeah, Chopper famously said once, "I'm not a hard man, but I've broken some men that thought they were." That was Chopper Reed, mad as a cut snake, abused as a boy. And this is the great line nobody wants to let out. Independent children's lawyers are appointed to look after the interests of the child. Well, I've seen firsthand where the ICL didn't even interview the child, had no idea of the child. And this bloated female wandered in a minute before the trial and spouted off, this is in the best interest of the child, had no interest. They have no interest in it. It's a money-making business. See, divorce lawyers, with a few exceptions, and I mean this sincerely, with very few exceptions, but there are some, they're the lowest rung. They're loathsome. It's a game. One of my many idiot lawyers actually said to me, "Oh, I don't take much interest in my kids. My wife does that." Well, I'm there struggling for my own son's well-being. That's the level of stupid the lawyers have. He's now a judge, by the way. Terrific.
Great. Well done.
Why else? Why else do abused kids go back to their abusers? Because there's no recognition of the child's abuse. Why? Because the parents perjure themselves over and over and over again to enhance their case against the innocent party. Now, good old Julia Gillard made perjury a non-issue in the family court because there were so many of these ridiculous allegations that they just ignore it. But you throw enough mud, it sticks. And so there you go. The child's abuse isn't investigated. The child's abuse doesn't become an issue because it's just another allegation. It's just another allegation. And so the good people, men and women, suffer at the hands of the liars that make these allegations in order to win the case. And that's facilitated by the lawyers, because the lawyers have a checklist of issues that if the judge sees it, they'll go, well, I was going to side with one side rather than the other. We're going to bring back that perjury aspect to family law. You lie, you go to jail. Good. We're also going to introduce, like the Canadians do, psychological assessment for both parties before the process begins, because some people are just insane. And I remember one friend telling me the affidavit that was submitted, and he went through the issues that were being questioned by the lawyer and all these ridiculous allegations, and he just kept batting it back. And here's evidence that that's wrong. Here's evidence that that's wrong. Here's evidence that was wrong. And at the end of it, the lawyer just rolled her eyes and said, "She's nuts." There's a technical description. The answer is yes. And the psychologist who interviewed this individual's wife in order to understand what counselling the child might need came to the same conclusion. Pauline Hanson tried to have the family law reviewed. It was knocked back. She failed in that attempt. Why? There's a whole bunch of reasons. It's a money spinner for the lawyers. It creates the broken families. Pauline Hanson tried to have that reviewed, and that failed because it's a money spinner for the lawyers. It achieves the objectives of the globalists, which is destroy the family unit, because they need to break the family unit in order to break society so they can take it over. As a side benefit for the pedophiles, see, single mums then become overwhelmed, and so the pedophile will befriend the single mum, over time establish a high level of trust, and then one day he says, look, and sometimes she, because they're female pedophiles too, oh, look, take the day off, I'll take the kids to the zoo. And she gratefully says yes. It's called farming. It's part of the pedophile process. They ingratiate themselves, get trust, and then it's called farming because they need new kids. And then they abuse the kids, The kids are traumatized one more time, they're broken, and away you go. And so it's a sick area of law. Nobody cares about it. Fathers are committing suicide at an alarming rate as a result of it. And if men were the violent animals that we are portrayed to be, they take it on the wives, but guess what? They take it on themselves.
That's right.
They self-destruct.
That's right.
And that loathsome Eva Cox, hero to the ABC communists when told that men were committing suicide at a greater rate than women, said at least they're getting something right.
Oh.
And this was put on an Australian stamp by Julia Gillard, queen of the baby killers. So you get my drift here, folks. You need to wake up. You need to understand that unless you want a moral country, it's not going to happen. Unless you speak up, nothing's going to change. This is how it descends into barbarity, pre-biblical barbarity. If you want a moral country, you have to start acting, folks.
Well, Rick, let's end it there. Big show. That vaccine one was a real bombshell.
That's the smoking gun. You want evidence that Scott Morrison should be in jail for the rest of his natural life? Yeah. You know what? I was thinking of building a specific prison for the politicians, but I think I'll put them in general population.
I think that's better.
I think that's better.
Yeah,
save money. We don't want to spend too much.
Yeah, of course, Riccardo. You know, they've spent enough. This is the last episode with Riccardo in person this year, most likely. We might do one on the 30th of December, but and Riccardo, you might be tuning in by video, but I'll have a guest host for the next week or two.
Excellent. Who's the lucky man?
I'm going to leave that for my audience. I want to see what the audience says. Who do you guys think that we can get in? Maybe I'll even change my mind on it if it's a good enough suggestion. But I do have someone lined up. It's going to be very exciting. And Riccardo, you will be continuing your tour up through Queensland.
Correct.
And you will be back in New South Wales around about Christmas time with the family.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you for doing this tour. Honestly, the amount of people that have come up to both of us has been humbling for myself. Big shout out to a guy named Wayne. You're a legend. One person even gave us gold and silver and frankincense and myrrh. It was like, it's like you guys are legends.
Isn't the A1 family just an amazing collection of people?
They're amazing. And you said it the other night. It's not the gifts. We expect to receive nothing. We're trying to save the country. It's the love. It's the hugs. It's the photos. They treat you like rock stars. And it's not the self-aggrandizement either. It's that we realize we're not alone. We're not speaking into the ether.
Yeah.
And they realize they're not alone.
Well, last night it was like a love fest. Everyone's talking to everybody else. There's 200 people. They're having a sausage and a beer.
Yeah.
And they found a family. They found somebody they could actually speak to clearly and honestly without having to censor themselves.
Yeah.
And actually just let rip. And it was fantastic, the spirit in that room. And they stayed for 3 hours.
Yeah.
In the Queensland heat.
Yeah.
Fantastic. They loved it. They loved it.
You know how once upon a time I said I can't imagine how a constitutional amendment would happen. I couldn't understand or comprehend how the founding fathers of America had these debates. You were going for like 3 hours and 10 minutes on camera yesterday, and I was looking around because you guys, it wasn't like we had 200 people in a relatively large place, but it still wasn't enough room. We had people up in the gallery. We had people on the stairs. People were standing. Half the people were standing up. The older people were obviously sitting. And there was an element of no one wanted to go away. Everyone was on the same wavelength. And everyone had these questions. Even a couple of older ladies, they even had somewhere they had to be and they didn't want to go anywhere. They didn't want to miss a heartbeat. And there was an element of, this is what it used to look like.
It did.
You know?
It wasn't unusual to have 6-hour debates between political opponents 100 years ago.
Yeah, longer.
They'd literally be on their soapboxes and all day belting up backwards and forwards, the to and from, and the audience would just be singing, I'm in favour of that. Oh, no, actually, now that's it was the way it used to be done.
Yeah.
And they had a depth of knowledge and understanding of the issues. As opposed to these asinine one-line grabs from mainstream media.
Yeah.
they really understood the issues and they got into it. It was like, and the questions last night indicated they had a depth of understanding too.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to be happy with a short one-liner, were they?
No, they came back.
wanted facts.
Yeah, they came back.
How are you going to do this? Well, here you go. Bang, bang, bang. You happy with that? Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
Next question. Moving right along.
And no moderator to save your butt. No,
no.
no Q&A ABC host to be
I'll
like.
take that as a statement.
Yeah, I'll take that as a statement. We had statements last night, but we made sure there was a question, and we got one.
Oh,
and
good.
it was brilliant.
And that's exactly what the A1 family is like. They are just a collection of decent people. You'd have them round for dinner.
Yeah, legendary guys. So we're feeling the love. I can't wait to meet all of you around Australia. But I will be heading back. I won't be able to cover the rest of the. I think you're going all the way up to as far as Emerald, which you guys can see on the website.
Oh, as far as Townsville, and maybe even Cairns if the revised itinerary can fit it in. Maybe.
Wow.
I won't promise that, but certainly Townsville. There's a lot of problems in Townsville.
Wow.
And a lot of very frustrated people, good
Yeah.
people that want those problems aired.
Amazing. That's really encouraging to hear people waking up. So, guys, thank you for supporting the show. It's been a brilliant year. Riccardo, we will see you back next week with some videos. But as always, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Joel, thank you very much, mate. You're an absolute champion. More power to your arm. Speak soon.
Thank you for your time.